Last night was amazing, the email began. It wasn't addressed to me but to my fiancé's boss. As I read on, my heart seemed to stop. Each word was a clear betrayal, penned in her own secret hand. Each email, each whispered call detailed their clandestine meetings, leaving me gasping for air. I realized I was engaged to a stranger, a specter wearing the mask of the woman I loved. How could she, with our wedding just around the corner? The truth was too stark to ignore. This is my journey through a labyrinth of lies. Enjoy watching. For weeks, I had this bad feeling in my gut. Something was off with Sarah. Our wedding was in a month, but she had been acting weird, always on her phone, smiling at texts when she thought I wasn't looking. At first, I tried to let it go. We were busy planning a wedding. Sure, she was busy, but the bad feeling wouldn't leave me. One night, while Sarah was in the shower, I found myself reaching for her phone on the table. I knew her password, she shared it for emergencies. My thumb paused above the screen. Did I really want to do this, go through my fiancé's private stuff? I put the phone back, feeling bad. If I couldn't trust the woman I was about to marry, then what was the point? But as days passed, the doubts kept growing, the late work nights, the quiet phone talks, the way she now dressed up more for work. I hated myself for even thinking it, but was Sarah cheating? I had to know. One day, when she was out, I logged onto our shared laptop and opened her Facebook page. My hands shaking, I clicked through her messages and posts, looking for anything wrong. But there was nothing, just funny pics, cat videos, and us looking happy. I closed the laptop, feeling guilty and paranoid. What was I doing? This wasn't me. Yet the doubt stayed, eating at my mind. I had to look more. I logged into her email, the one for work. If there were any signs of her cheating, they'd be here. As I scrolled through her inbox, I felt sick. What would I find? Did I even want to know now? But I couldn't stop. I had to see it through, no matter how much it might hurt me. With shaking hands, I clicked on an email that scared me. It was amazing last night, it read. It was from Sarah's boss, Mark. I could hardly breathe as I read their words, each one more shocking than the last. I can't stop thinking about you, Sarah had said. Being with you makes me feel a way I never did before. I know we said this was just for fun, Mark replied, but I'm falling for you, Sarah. I want more than secret moments. My eyes filled with tears as I read about their hidden meetups in Mark's office, quick moments on lunch breaks, weekends in cheap hotels. They had deleted the most explicit messages, but there was enough to show the awful truth. What they said about me made me sick. Sarah whined about how dull I was. Mark joked about how dumb I must be. They laughed at our wedding plans like it was all a big game. I can't keep this act up, Sarah said in a message. I meant to marry him, but it's you I want. I hate lying to everyone. Just a bit longer, baby, Mark calmed her. Once you're married, it'll be simpler. No one will think it's us, and we can be together all we want. I couldn't read on. I shut the laptop, moving away from it as if it was toxic. I just sat there on the floor, crying until I felt empty inside. How could she do this after all we shared, all the dreams we had? I thought what we had was true, but it was all fake. Our whole thing was a lie. I wanted to yell at her, to ask why, and shout, but a small hurt part of me was almost glad because even though everything was falling apart, at least now I knew the truth. No more doubts, no more what-ifs, just the hard truth that the woman I loved, the woman I was ready to give my life to, was a liar and a cheater. And now I had to figure out what to do. I don't know how long I sat there on the floor, looking at the closed laptop as if it was about to explode. Time stood still. It felt like I was sinking, like the room was getting smaller around me and I couldn't breathe. The first shock was gone, and now the full weight of it hit me. Sarah, my Sarah, the woman I had loved more than anything, had betrayed me in the worst way. I felt ripped apart. One moment I was so angry I wanted to smash something, to yell until I had no voice left, to make her feel the pain she gave me. The next, I was hit by a sadness so deep it brought me to the ground. It was like grieving a death, the death of our love, our future, everything I thought was ours. I couldn't stop seeing our wedding day in my head, how happy and perfect it was supposed to be. Now it seemed like a mean trick. But under the anger and the sorrow, a small guilty part of me felt free, like a heavy load was gone. For months I was driving myself crazy, asking if I was mad for thinking something was off. Now I knew I wasn't imagining things. My gut had been right. As much as the truth hurt, there was a weird peace in knowing I was right. I didn't know what to do next: talk to her, act like I didn't see the emails, and just get married like nothing was wrong, leave and never look back. My head was filled with options, each one more painful than the last. I wanted to hate her, to forget her name, to wipe every memory of her from my mind. But even with all the hurt tearing me apart, I still loved her. That was the hardest part. After everything, I couldn't just stop feeling. I knew I couldn't make any choices now. I was too upset, too all over the place. I needed time to deal with it, to mourn, to get mad, and to figure out how to pick up the broken pieces of my life and move on. But one thing was clear: I couldn't marry her. Not now, not after what I found out. Our wedding, our future, it was all fake, a pretty lie that got busted wide open. I took a big, shaky breath and stood up. Step 1, I had to leave this house, get away from anything that made me think of her. I needed to clear my head, plan my next steps, and then somehow find the strength to face the woman who broke my heart into tiny pieces. The next few days were a blur on my buddy's couch, hardly eating or sleeping. I spilled everything to him: the emails, the cheating, the lies. He was super mad for me, wanted to confront Sarah himself, but this was my fight. I couldn't stop going over it all, obsessing over every word. The more I thought about those emails, the more my shock and sadness turned into a sharp, cold anger. How could she do this to me? How could she play me like that, make me look dumb? I thought of all the ways I could get back at her. I could bust into her office, call her and mark out in front of everyone. I could print the emails and stick them up all over town, let everyone see she's a faker, a cheater. But deep down, I knew those payback dreams wouldn't fix anything. They might make me feel better for a moment, but they wouldn't mend the big hole in my heart. No, I had to face her in a way that would help me truly get over this. I needed to look her in the eyes, hear her try to say why, and then tell her my thoughts, clear. I had to show her the mess she made, the future she dropped for a quick thrill. But I knew I couldn't do that alone. I wanted to, but I didn't trust myself not to lose it. I needed someone there, not to team up on her, but to keep me calm, to stop me from doing something I'd regret. Then I thought of it, the wedding. It should have been our happiest day, a day to show our love in front of family and friends. What better time to reveal her lie, to show everyone what she truly was? I pictured her face when I called her out in front of everyone, the shock and shame on her, her parents' horror, her friends' disgust. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of the shame and hurt I did. It was a risk, I knew. It could backfire, make me look like the crazy one left behind. People might feel sorry for me, think I was just being spiteful. But I didn't mind. This was for me, about taking back control, not letting her betrayal define me. I started to plan, calling my close family and friends. I kept it vague, just said there was something big I had to share at the wedding, and I needed them there. They didn't push, they just said they'd be there for me, no matter what. As the wedding day got closer, I felt a strange mix of dread and readiness. Part of me still couldn't believe it had come to this, but there was no other way now. Sarah had made her choice, and now, in front of everyone, I was going to make sure she dealt with the consequences. The last week felt odd, like a dream. On the surface, everything was as planned, last-minute checks, making sure the food and flowers were all set, answering calls from excited family. Yet, I felt like I was about to explode. Sarah was acting off too. She seemed more nervous than usual, always on edge. At first, I thought she might be having doubts about us getting married. It was almost funny. But as time went on, I noticed other things. She was on her phone more than before and would stop talking whenever I came into the room. The big warning came when we talked about our honeymoon. We had plans for a 2-week trip to Hawaii to relax and celebrate us being together. But then Sarah began to make excuses. I don't think I can take that much time off work, she said, not looking at me. Work's really busy. Maybe we could just take a short weekend trip instead. I couldn't believe it. This was our honeymoon, something we had been looking forward to for months, and now, days before our wedding, she wanted to cut it short. Really? I asked, trying to stay calm. Sarah, we've had this planned for a long time. What's really going on? Nothing, she said too fast. It's just work. I don't want to leave Mark hanging. Mark. Just hearing his name made me feel sick. She didn't know that I already knew. She put Mark before me. I thought about calling her out, asking her why she didn't want to go on our trip, but I held back. Maybe I wanted to see how long she'd keep up this act. Fine, I said, holding back. If a weekend is all we have, then that's what we'll do. She seemed to relax, like she had just avoided trouble. She didn't know the big shock was still to come. As the rehearsal dinner approached, I kept an eye on her, watching everything she did, the way she smiled a bit too much at Mark when he showed up, the long hug she gave him, the quick looks they sent each other when they thought no one was watching. Now it all made sense, the signs I'd missed before, the clues I didn't want to see. Part of me wanted to call it quits right there, to stand up during the dinner and call them out on their secret. But I kept quiet. I had a plan, and I meant to follow it through. Let them think they had fooled everyone with their secret smiles and hidden touches. Because tomorrow, in front of everyone we knew, the truth would come out. And oh, how they would need help then. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I kept turning, thinking about the big scene to come. Every time I shut my eyes, I pictured Sarah's face, that look of surprise and shame I wanted to see when I told everyone about her affair. Unable to stand the quiet of our room, I went back to the computer, back to the email that had shown me the sad truth. I hadn't checked it since that first big shock, scared of what more I might find. But now, with the wedding so soon, I had to know if there was any more shocks waiting for me. With a heavy feeling, I logged in and started to look. At first, it was the same, love letters talking about secret times, bad words about me. But then a new message caught my eye. It was about the wedding day. My hands shook as I opened it. I got ready for the worst, and there it was in clear words. I can't wait to see you tomorrow, Sarah had written. Knowing you'll watch me walk down that aisle, it's the only thing getting me through this fake wedding. Just a few more hours, baby, Mark replied. Then we can have our own fun. I booked the top room at the Ritz. We can sneak off after the wedding, spend the night together. I felt sick. The wedding didn't mean anything to her anymore, just a hurdle before she could run to her lover. And the honeymoon? Just a lie for a secret meeting. The next email was like a hit in the gut. It was from Sarah, a note for 2 first-class tickets to Paris for the day after the wedding. A gift from my folks, she had said. They think it's for our honeymoon. They'd be shocked if I didn't come back. I couldn't breathe. This was more than just an affair. This was Sarah planning to leave me, to start a new life with Mark while making me think we were happy. The world spun as I realized her not wanting to talk about the honeymoon, her rush to return to work. It was all to escape, to leave me behind while she flew to her dream life. I shut the laptop, full of shock and anger. In a way, it was almost good to know all of her lies, no more questions, no more doubts. She had made her choice, and now it was my turn. I couldn't go through with this wedding, couldn't stand there and vow my life to a woman who planned to leave me. But I couldn't let her just walk off into her dream ending with her lover. No, she had to face the consequences of what she did. She had to be shown for the liar and cheat she was. I looked at the clock, my resolve growing stronger with each tick. In just a few hours, I was going to stand at the front of the church, watching my bride walk towards me. But I wasn't going to talk about love and forever. No, I had a very different speech ready. By the time I was done, everyone would be crying, and they'd all know the true face of Sarah. The wedding day came bright and clear. It was the perfect day for what looked like the perfect couple. I stood in front of the mirror, just going through the motions of getting ready, shave, shower, put on the fancy tux that once made me feel great. Now it felt like a lie, covering up the broken part inside. My friends were all around, making jokes and sharing a drink, not seeing the storm inside me. They thought they were here for a happy day. They had no idea they were about to see my world fall apart. I kept looking at the clock, counting down to the moment. My gut was twisted with a mix of fear and anticipation. Part of me couldn't believe I was really doing this, about to ruin my own wedding. But every time I thought of backing out, I remembered those emails, how Sarah and Mark laughed at me. They didn't care about hurting me, about making my life a joke. So why should I be nice to them now? I stood at the front, looking over the crowd, all our family and friends, here to see what they thought was a big happy day. I saw my parents smiling at me. I saw Sarah's mom already wiping her eyes. And there at the back was Mark, looking way too pleased for a guy watching his secret girlfriend marry someone else. The music swelled, and there she was, Sarah, walking down the aisle in her dress, looking beautiful. She looked so happy, like a dream bride, but I knew the dark secret as she came near. I doubted if I could tell the truth. Could I really ruin our wedding? Then I saw Sarah's eyes, full of guilt. She tried to hide it with a fake smile, and I realized I couldn't live a lie, couldn't pretend while she cheated on me. It was better to end it now, to start fresh. The music stopped, and the officiant began to speak. He talked about how sacred marriage is. I barely listened, my heart was pounding too loudly. Then it was my turn. The words of love I had planned to say felt empty. I took a deep breath and faced everyone. Before we start, I said, my voice unsteady, I have to tell you something important. I saw Sarah freeze, fear in her eyes. Mark in the back looked worried. I'm sorry to do this here, but I can't marry Sarah. She's been seeing her boss. The crowd was shocked. Sarah went pale, dropping her flowers. I told them about the emails, the affair, and their plan to use the wedding as a cover to run off to Paris. As I spoke, the crowd reacted with horror, pity, and anger. But I watched Sarah, tears in her eyes, shaking in her dress. I loved you, Sarah. I trusted you. I was ready to be with you for life, but you broke my trust in the worst way. And I won't let you make a fool of me. No more. I looked at the crowd, at the shocked faces of our family and friends. I'm sorry for ruining today, but you all should know the truth. No wedding today or ever. It's over for good. I walked past the whispering people, past my shocked mom and dad. I didn't look back, didn't stay to see Sarah fall apart or watch Mark sneak away in shame. I just kept going, out of the church, into the bright day. It was over. The truth was out, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. I stood there, facing everyone who came to see us happy, but all I felt was anger and hurt. I saw Sarah coming toward me, all dressed in white, trying to smile, but right then I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there and lie, saying I'd be with a cheater forever. Stop the music, I said loud enough for all to hear. No wedding today. People looked confused. Sarah stopped, her smile gone. Our parents looked worried. I faced them all, holding onto the altar to keep steady. I'm sorry to do this here in front of you, I said, but you need to know something. Sarah, the one I was going to marry, has been with her boss, not just working, but more. People gasped and started talking all at once. Sarah turned pale, dropping her flowers. Yes, I said, trying to sound tough, while I planned our big day, she was with her married boss, hiding it, laughing at me. I pointed to Mark, hiding in the church's back. There he is, the man she just couldn't say no to. Did you think I'd never find out, Mark, that I wouldn't learn all about your dirty secret? Mark looked terrified, his face pale. His wife began to cry, her sobs echoing in the now silent room. I turned to Sarah, trembling in her white dress, black streaks from her mascara running down her face. How could you? I whispered, my voice shaking. I loved you. I trusted you. I was ready to spend my life with you, and this is how you repay me? By making me look like a fool in front of everyone we know? Please, she said softly, trying to reach for me, let me explain. I laughed, a bitter sound, moving away from her touch. Explain? What's there to explain? You're a liar, and I'm done being the gullible fool about to marry you. I faced the shocked guests one last time. I'm sorry you all had to witness this, but you deserve to know the truth about the person we were here to celebrate today. No vows, no cheers, no cake, just the real, painful truth. With that, I walked quickly down the aisle, ripping off my boutonniere and throwing it to the ground. Behind me, the church erupted in noise with voices, crying, doors slamming, but I kept going, out into the bright sunlight, away from the shattered pieces of my life. It was over. The truth was out, and it felt strangely liberating to expose her deceit for all to see. The church buzzed with chaos as I made my dramatic exit. I could hear the shouting and crying behind me, all blending together, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't bear to see the aftermath of my actions. I walked to the parking lot, my heart pounding, my head spinning. Part of me couldn't believe I had actually done it. I had blown up my own wedding in the most public, humiliating way possible. But beneath the rush of anger and adrenaline, I felt a strange sense of relief. I had taken back control. No more playing the fool for Sarah and Mark. Let them deal with the fallout now. Oh, and it was a big fallout. As I walked away, the shouting from the church spilled outside. Angry voices grew louder. "You jerk!" Mark yelled, enraged. "You've ruined everything." I turned to see him charging at me, his face twisted in fury. A crowd had gathered outside, all eyes on us. Me? I ruined everything? I said, incredulous. "You've been sleeping with my fiancée for months." Mark's face turned crimson with rage. "You don't know what you've done," he spat. "Sarah and I love each other. We were going to leave all this behind and start fresh, and you've wrecked it, you loser." Seeing red, I stepped forward, ready to hit him, but a voice cut through the chaos. "Stop it!" Sarah cried, pushing through the crowd. Tears streamed down her face, her hair a tangled mess. "Just stop, both of you." She looked at me, pleading. "How could you?" she whispered. "How could you humiliate me like that in front of everyone we know?" "How could I?" I shot back. "How could you cheat on me, lie to me, and turn our entire relationship into a joke? You brought this on yourself, Sarah. You and your pathetic lover here." Sarah looked stricken, as if I had slapped her. I saw her mother pushing through the crowd, her face a mix of shock and anger. "Is it true?" she demanded, grabbing Sarah's arm. "Tell me it's not true, Sarah. Tell me you didn't." Sarah broke down, covering her face with her hands. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I never wanted this to happen." Her mother stepped back, aghast. "I can't believe this," she said, her voice filled with fury and disappointment. "I taught you better, Sarah. How could you mess up your life, leave a good guy like him for a fling with your married boss?" Sarah just cried harder, her body shaking with sobs. Mark stood there, his arrogance gone, shrinking under Sarah's mother's anger. People around us whispered and speculated, phones capturing the scene. I knew the story would spread quickly. By tomorrow, everyone would know what Sarah and Mark had done. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see my best friend, his face filled with sympathy. "Let's go," he said quietly. "You don't need to stay for this." I nodded, feeling exhausted, all my anger drained. He led me away, past the staring eyes, past my shocked family. I still heard Sarah's cries, Mark's loud protests, and the murmurs of the crowd, but I kept walking, my head held high. It was their mess now, I was out. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyer meetings and sympathetic looks. The story had spread fast, just as I had expected. Everywhere I went, people whispered and cast pitying glances my way when they thought I wasn't looking. I didn't mind. Let them talk, let them speculate about the jilted groom and the unfaithful bride. I had more important things on my mind, like ending my ties with Sarah, dividing our finances, our belongings, our life together. It hurt, it was messy, but each day I felt a bit lighter, a bit freer. Every box packed away, every joint account closed, was a step towards reclaiming my life, myself. And through it all, I waited. I waited to hear about Sarah and Mark, to see if they found their happy ending. I knew it was unhealthy, knew I should just forget them like a bad dream, but a stubborn part of me had to know. I needed to see how their disastrous love story played out. I didn't have to wait long. About a month after the wedding fiasco, a friend called me, barely able to contain her excitement. "You won't believe what I heard," she said. "Sarah lost her job. The company had a policy against dating the boss. Once people found out about her and Mark, they had to let her go." I felt a small sense of satisfaction imagining it. I imagined Sarah packing up her desk, the whispers and looks from her coworkers. She deserved it, I thought bitterly. Let her face the shame of having her secrets exposed. But that was just the beginning. A few weeks later, I ran into Mark's soon-to-be ex-wife at the store. She looked older, her eyes red and puffy, her usual polished appearance gone. "I just wanted to say sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "For what Mark did to you, what they both did. I didn't know. I really thought he was just working late. I thought he cared about his job, about us. I feel so stupid." I felt a pang of sympathy for her. "It's not your fault," I said gently. "They're the ones who should be sorry, not you. How are you holding up?" She laughed sadly, wiping away a tear. "You know, dealing with the divorce, fighting over the kids, it's all a mess. Mark wants everything, every moment with the kids. He says he needs the money for his new life with Sarah." She shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. "But the joke's on him. Sarah left him right after she was fired. Turns out he wasn't so appealing without his job and money. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents, totally humiliated." I couldn't help but laugh, a laugh full of vindication. It was just too perfect. The cheaters got what they deserved, the liars were exposed. As I walked away from Mark's ex, still chuckling, I felt lighter. For a long time, I had carried the weight of Sarah's betrayal like a heavy burden, but now, seeing how the deceit backfired, I could finally let it go. Fate had dealt them a blow far worse than anything I could have imagined. Sarah was now jobless and disgraced, slinking back to her parents. Mark was left with nothing, his bright future with Sarah turned to dust. Meanwhile, I was free from their lies, their schemes, their toxicity. Free to heal, to rebuild, to grow stronger. It wasn't easy. The scars of betrayal run deep, and there were many tough days when the pain felt just as raw. But as the days turned into weeks, the hurt began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of resilience and self-worth. I focused on my career, my friends, my passions. I rediscovered parts of myself that had been lost in the haze of love and betrayal, and slowly, cautiously, I opened my heart again, went on dates, and allowed myself to envision a future with someone new. I never saw Sarah again, never spoke to her after that fateful day at the church. But I didn't need to. In the end, living well was the best revenge, and as I looked out over the city, a drink in my hand and a new love by my side, I knew I had won. Not because I had defeated Sarah and Mark, but because I had survived them, thrived despite them. Fate had turned, and I stood tall, unbroken, ready for whatever came next.